Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we have a very special guest with us. His name is PJ Glassy, and PJ has got a wealth of experience. And just to touch on it, he's a certified trainer. He's developed his own exercise methodology. He's a biohacker, an author of a book called The Cracking Your Calorie Code. And we have a lot in common as far as our approach to health, and we're in about the same age, and we've got a lot of things to discuss. PJ, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's great to be here. I'm doing awesome. How you doing today?
I am doing fantastic as well.
Nice.
I'm on the other side of a very difficult spot in my life, and the practices I've learned and the biohacking I've been doing have created a miracle that doctors can't understand, but I don't care.
hmm That's great. Yeah, I was reading up on it and good job on all that.
Thank
What
you.
most people do when they get a diagnosis like that is they go into paralysis, like a
Yeah,
freeze. We go into fight, flight, or freeze, right? Most people freeze
yeah,
and then they just kind of do what they're told and they
right,
don't do any research of their own and they just kind of follow along blindly because they're numb, they're scared, they're numb. It's totally
right.
understandable and it's
Sure.
actually a natural reaction.
Scary as
But
hell.
yeah, but some people like you don't go down that road and
Decide
it
it's
pays
better to
off.
live. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
my life, and I plan on being around for a good long while. And
Yeah.
so here we are. So tell me about your story.
Well, I started out as a psych major at SPU and that was all fine and dandy, but my real passion was fitness. So my senior year, I switched to exercise science. I always liked science, and the exercise science major is made up of a lot of classes as opposed to PE, because in the PE department, but it's not teaching me how to be a teacher. It's teaching me, the biology and the chemistry and the anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, all those things.
Hmm.
And which is fun, but also kind of matched up more with my passion for fitness. And then I became a personal trainer after college and then opened up the X Gym. And along the way, developed a methodology that helped people save time, but also was safer. So people weren't getting injured like they are with traditional training.
That sounds interesting. I'd like to hear more about that. I know that
Yeah.
the latest thing is always the latest thing, and we've got HIIT
hmm
training and CrossFit training and all
hmm
these things that are really intensive, and people that are running marathons, and they all get hurt.
Yeah. And let me just say that all forms of exercise are great. And I view everybody as we're all on the same team. We're just
Yes.
helping people get off the couch and
Mhm.
helping our country and the world get more healthier, really. I
Right.
mean, it's all about health. And that's really what the main focus and goal of the X Gym is to help people get healthy. We're
Nice.
not concerned with helping people get jacked, getting that six pack, looking good, just because most people think a lot about that and it's skin deep in the fitness world, but
Right.
we're more about overall real health. So physical, mental, spiritual, endurance, functional fitness, so people can enjoy their life and a longer lifespan, but also a longer health span. So while they're living longer, they're able to enjoy it better. So, we're doing a lot of biohacking and anti-aging and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to the other gyms that are mostly concerned with how you look in the mirror
They got
and
beards all around them, don't they?
all around. We don't have a single one in the next gym.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's been a journey of coming up with a methodology that can help people because we created a niche that's a time hack workout that is safer and helps people tone and define and develop functional fitness without bulking up. So if you go to traditional training and go to a bodybuilding gym, they're all about getting jacked and stuff. And that's great. I went through that phase in my life too, and it was
Sure.
very helpful. and it helped me get motivated and kept me in fitness. So if that works for people, if CrossFit motivates people to get off the couch and go out and get exercise, awesome. They're
Agreed.
all great and they're all different markets. Our market is very specific and very unique in that we service really super busy people that don't have time to work out, that are those who don't want to be injured or have been injured and so they're afraid of getting injured again and don't want to get jacked. They want to look toned and defined, look and feel fit, and be fit functionally. And so that happens to be 40 to 70 years old is the biggest
Mhm.
part of our bell curve. Yeah.
Yep. I know
And
that genre.
yeah, because those are the busy people and the people that want all that other stuff I mentioned. But also, we have 80-year-olds, we have we have two 90s, people in their
Nice.
90s now. Yeah. And we
Love
have some teens. So it but the biggest part is that 40 to 70 because those are the
it.
busy people. And those are also the people that are really thinking about their health. In your 20s and 30s, you're not really concerned about it so much because
You're
you're so
invincible.
resilient. Yeah,
Right.
it's easier. But then when you get into your fourth decade, then they're thinking about it more.
Hit the first wall.
Right. And so then anti-aging and biohacking are more interesting. And so we can help people with that too. So it's not just a place to come and get workouts because we do a lot of online training and we have an app where people can use for our workouts and methodology. But we're also about health, and that's where our newsletter comes in. Everybody gets enrolled into an automated course on health and nutrition and stuff like that. So it's not just workouts. Plus, I have an AI in my website that members get to access, and they can go in there and just kind of like ChatGPT, ask it questions about health and nutrition and meditation and prayer and whatever you want. And it's probably going to come up with an answer because it's powered by my book and almost 500 blog posts. So it's just my information.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's different from what
Not just scrolling the web.
exactly. It's a lot different than it's not the web at all. So that's another benefit of this whole holistic attitude with the X Gym on health.
So tell us about biohacking. That's a term that came up. I considered myself a biohacker as of about 8 years ago, and
Hmm.
after my dad died, and I realized I was going to become him if I kept going down that road, which was
Hmm.
overweight, diabetic, heart disease, and eventually dead by 70. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh crap, I can't let that happen. And
Uh-uh.
I began my journey of biohacking. But it's a phrase that you hear a lot. Anti-aging kind of speaks for itself, right? We want to
Yeah.
reverse the aging process, but biohacking. Why don't you explain what you mean by that?
Well, technically, the definition is somebody that uses information, research, and technology to become healthier.
Okay,
And that is kind of a broad definition. And there are different levels of biohackers.
agreed.
I'm kind of a gadget freak. So
Okay,
that's why well, just here at my desk, I've got my blue light blocker glasses that I usually
nice,
wear when I'm on the TV or looking at a screen. Here's my hydrogen water bottle.
nice.
I've got my CO2 machine that I can put on here and
Okay,
breathe a CO2 mixture for CO2 tolerance. And it's just, endless as
I
far as
love it.
that goes. But a
I've
lot
got
of,
my gadget tricks too. I
yeah,
got an ozone generator and ultra or infrared sauna, steam sauna. We've got
love it.
working with frequency, Rife machine. I've got
Oh, Rife,
of,
yeah.
all kinds of gadgets and tools.
Hmm.
Love it.
Yeah, and anybody can be a biohacker even if they don't get gadgets. Basically, the bottom line is you're a biohacker if you're constantly doing your own research
All right.
and your own experiments.
Yeah.
And there are dumb biohackers out there
Oh
and there are
yeah.
smart biohackers out there. So
And I think it's important for people to realize that, one of the themes of this podcast is that, your health is your health. And
yeah,
finding your way to it is not necessarily just listening to somebody's book and doing what they say. It's you got to find your answers, and everybody's
Yes.
got different metabolism. Everybody's as unique as your thumbprint, and there's things
Yep.
that work for everybody, but not everything works for everybody the same.
Exactly. And it's important to be a skeptic. And
Yes.
I know that, yeah, that's your thing too.
Oh
So
yeah.
question everything, believe no one. Don't
Right.
even believe yourself.
Put it to the
Because
test.
yeah, because when you have that attitude, you're going to be doing your research in an unbiased way. Well,
Yes.
as unbiased as possible.
Right. Right. Of
It is impossible to be unbiased.
course.
And so when we're doing research, we're unconsciously doing research with a bias already, and
Right.
we're out there looking to confirm our bias.
Yes. Which is the worst thing
But
we could do.
yes, but if we're aware of that,
Right.
then we can actively work against that and
Exactly.
go with all sides of any topic.
Make an effort to try to prove yourself wrong, and then
Bingo.
you can find some truth.
Exactly. And what I like to do is I look at myself and I think, okay, what bias do I have? And then I'm probably, so there's a scale here. There's going to be the person who has the opposite bias, and there's the person over here who has more of a bias than me. So I'm going to go and I'm going to research this person first, the
Mhm.
opposite bias first. I'm going to learn all about why I could be wrong. Then
Right.
I'm going to go to the other extreme and figure out who's more extreme than me on this bias and what are they saying? Because the
Nice.
truth is somewhere in there. It might be here or
Generally,
here, but
right.
it's not going to be here and it's not going to be here.
Correct. I love it. I love it. That's a good approach. I've been studying Kuhn's book, The Structure of Scientific Revolution, and you learn about, how um, a paradigm is changed. And, you think about what we know today as opposed to what we knew 50 years ago
Mhm.
and what we knew 50 years before that. And they were completely different worlds that had completely different players and completely different understandings of things. And you think to ourselves, where are we going to be in 50 years from now? And it'll probably
Exactly.
be different from that. And then you understand like why changes happen and how they happen and how they get accepted and how long it takes before anybody even begins to accept it. And you're like, wow, okay, I
Yeah.
got a lot of work to do.
All right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when new things come out, I think it's Mark Twain that said, that people react negatively at first and then they're ridiculed and then,
Right,
it goes through its iterations and the people that hang in there and stick with it and can take the ridicule, but
right.
know that they want and the best things in life that people have developed are by people who want to help people. They're
Absolutely.
not necessarily people who want to make a lot of money. It's the people that, and those are the people that stick with it through
Agreed.
all the persecution and trials.
Absolutely. It's like anything. If you have a passion for something and you're willing to stay the course, eventually you can make a living at it, but
Hmm.
you're going to do it with everything you got. You're going to put your heart into it and
Hmm.
you'll probably make a difference.
Exactly. Yeah. And my dad always taught me to pick something that I love that doesn't feel like work.
Mhm.
And I did. And that's why I switched from psychology to exercise science. I use both a lot in what I do, psychology and exercise science, but I'm happier. And I probably could have made more money as a psychologist, but I'm happier now. And that's really what it's all about because that
Exactly.
is such a huge part of overall health.
Yes.
When you're stressed out all the time and you're trapped in fight or flight all day, every day, then life is completely different and it's not fun. And then sure, you make a ton of money and you retire at 65, but then what?
Then what?
Well,
Right.
your life is
Exactly.
mostly gone. I mean,
Exactly.
even if you live to 100, you've wasted most of it and you were unhappy most of the time. It's just not worth it.
Exactly. No, and that's actually, you ever come close to death, you really come
Hmm.
to realize that, all these other things, you throw them away. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And you think about things like your happiness, relationships, the things that bring you joy, and
Hmm.
you start focusing on that, and all of a sudden things start changing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the key. And it's when you ask people on their deathbed what they regret
Hmm.
They never say things like, "Ah, I really wish I would have got that nicer car or that bigger house." It's
No,
never anything like that. It's always about relationships, about
exactly.
others, about missed opportunities
Wish I
with
would have gone on that
connection with
trip. I
people.
wish I would have seen that, or
Yeah,
made
totally.
that leap and asked that girl, or whatever. There's that.
Yeah. No
Those are
one ever says, I wish I would have made more money.
nope.
Never.
Sure, agreed.
Yeah.
So, you're coming into these pillars. I totally agree with these pillars, the happiness, the passion. Sometimes it's a necessity. Somebody finds out that they've got some condition, or they find out they're pre-diabetic, or they've got, you know, something that they've got to solve. And, that gives you the same motivation, you want to decide you want to live and live a healthy life, and
Yep.
it gets you up and moving.
Yep.
And so you're talking about these biohacking and gadgets and tools, I guess I would say. Gadgets is kind of a cheap word. I like tools. Um,
Yeah.
but when you're getting into this, there's motion, there's stress, there's the things that make exercise,
Hmm.
and what causes fitness and strength is resistance and the, you know, movement.
Hmm.
So how do you approach that?
Well, anytime that you're doing something hard, you're improving yourself.
Hmm.
And exercise is no exception. We all know that. A hard workout is way better than an easy workout. An easy workout is better than sitting on the couch. So I still
Absolutely.
tell people that it's better to get up and walk around your house or outside of your house than sitting there. Anything's better than that.
Right.
And that's what most people are doing all day, which is really sad.
Agreed.
But it's all about your comfort zone
Hmm.
because change never happens within your comfort zone. And if you want to change, and most people should want to change because that's how we improve as people, then you have to get outside your comfort zone. Now, we help people with that with our exercise program because it's guided in a certain way with a certain methodology to help them get further outside their comfort zone than other methodologies and other exercise techniques. But we also help people with that on a brain level. And that's why I developed my brain type test. So people can take it and determine which of the 16 brain types they are. And then they get half a dozen brain training techniques that literally rewire their brain
Ah,
so it's easier to achieve their health and fitness goals and mental goals instead of just wandering around and trying different things and seeing what works or doesn't work because I've got it boiled down to those brain types and I've figured out what does work for those brain types,
wow. I like that.
including helping people get outside their comfort zone. But that's really the whole thing is not to hate getting outside it, but even over time become addicted to that because the process is what you want to become addicted to with any habit change or any lifestyle change, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, whatever it is building those great healthy habits and pushing yourself because that's great
Agreed.
for the brain too. Yeah, I mean, people that don't push themselves mentally will decline, but if you make stuff hard and you do stuff that's hard and still enjoyable, then you can improve mentally. And you would be the first to say over your journey, you chose the hard road.
Always.
Yeah,
It's
and it's
interesting
worked.
that you say that because I've come to, you spend a lot of time reflecting on yourself when my one of my goals is to be the best person I can be in
Hmm.
all aspects. So that's a constant job. I'll never be there, but
Yep.
you're always when you have those goals, you get presented with increasingly difficult challenges.
Hmm.
And I always realize that when a difficult opportunity approaches me, I go, "Oh, wow, I'm going to grow again. This is good."
Yeah.
And but you go, it's going to be uncomfortable, so let me walk into it. And
Hmm.
and it becomes, like you said, almost an addiction. It's like you're always on an adventure. You're going down this river,
Hmm.
and you don't know what's going to be around next. All of a sudden, something
Yeah.
jumps out at you, and you got to deal with it.
Hmm.
And instead of it being, oh no, what am I going to do? It's like, oh, okay, let me pull out my toolbox and see what I got to do. And it does not make it
Yeah.
easy, does not make it fun, but you know that on the other side of it is going to be a reward, and you're going to gain something from it and become a
Hmm.
better person.
Exactly. And you just hit the magic word there, and that's adventure.
Hmm.
Some people are fearful of adventure because there's an unknown there. And
Right.
we're wired to fear the unknown. We like to have everything known, and we like to know what's coming next, and we like to know what color it's going to be and what it's going to look like.
Mhm.
And we don't want to have uncertainty. That's really the certainty is a basic human need, but
Right.
so is uncertainty. So
Yeah.
you can't get too comfortable with certainty. I think about I live here in the Seattle area, and this is the tech area.
Right.
So there's Amazon and there's Microsoft and there's all these companies that have these coders.
Right.
And so coders can fall into this trap really easily because they are typically an introvert, and they were typically raised to be able to, and their parents let them stay inside and play video games and be in
Right.
front of a screen. And so that was kind of their thing. And then they learn how to code, and then they like to be by themselves a lot. And so typically a coder's day is wake up late-ish and then go to work or work from home and code, and then order pizza and the food comes to them, and then they're in their thermostat controlled environment all day and sitting most of the day, and then they get off work, and then they turn on their video games. And so they're alone in this environment that isn't natural, that's all controlled. They're comfortable all day long. And so when they think that's their norm, and
Right.
they're in always in their comfort zone. So then when they think of an adventure, that's scary
Right.
because this is what they know.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, but those people need to stretch and need
Right.
to get outside and form more relationships, because even the most introverted introvert has to have connection with other humans, even though they
Absolutely.
don't think they do. And even though that might scare them, they've got to push themselves, get outside that comfort zone, and find relationships. And the best relationships they can have are the ones they have to work on, because anything, even relationships, if it's easy and you get along really well with that person, that's fine. And you can still be on a nice, deep, connected level. But it's the working on the relationship that is so good for the brain. And the sad thing about these coders is, with this sedentary lifestyle and no connect or low connection to most humans and very few relationships and being inside all day, they die early,
Right.
and they get dementia really early,
Hmm.
and cancer and all these other things because
Right.
of this unhealthy lifestyle and lack of connection. And they're not happy,
Yeah.
and they don't really
Most
know
importantly,
why.
I think, most importantly, they're not happy. They're
Oh gosh. And
lonely
that could just,
and yeah.
yes, just loneliness and depression can cause disease, even
Yes.
if everything else is right, because it's a cellular level. And I'm sure you've studied a lot about water
Oh
and,
yeah.
structured water and Dr.
Yeah.
Emoto's experiments and all that.
Absolutely.
And these guys are just, I mean, if you were to take the flash freeze picture of their water molecules, it would be awful. But then
Right.
you get the flash photo of somebody who is joy has joy every day because they love their life and they're connecting with other humans and
Whole
doing
different
hard
world.
things and learning new things all the time. That's going to be a completely different picture of their water molecule.
100%. I feel so blessed that I was born when I was born because, I grew up, you got thrown outside and,
Hmm.
go play with your friends.
Yeah.
And, we were basically feral,
Yeah.
and there was no computers, there was no cell phones. We had
Uh-uh.
bicycles and dirt and baseballs and
Yeah.
everything was an adventure. We went exploring and we went, all those Huckleberry Finn stuff, out
Right.
fishing and it was all about relationships. There was no like ghosting people or whatever.
Nope.
You picked up the phone and you called somebody and you
Yeah.
met up and you hung out all day. And if you had a fight, you just got into it and fought and then
Yeah.
for it and went and got some ice cream.
Right. Yeah, we didn't hold things in. We didn't try to be careful. We didn't wear bike helmets,
We
and none
broke
of that.
bones and got, we
Right?
had issues, we were always getting beat up and hurt, but it was
Yeah,
always an adventure. Always. Every day was an adventure.
it was an adventure, and it taught us that adventure is fun instead of
Yes.
being scared by it.
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's great. I remember going to see my grandma. We went over there a lot, and she lived on a river, and there was a gravel road to get to her place, and there was
Mhm.
the shiny red two speed, and, and there was
I love it.
I made ramps and I did
Yeah.
jumps and I
Oh,
wiped
heck
out,
yeah.
and then I'd come down to her, with scrapes and everything, and
Oh,
she'd clean
yeah.
them out and she'd put
Yeah.
bandages on them,
Went right back
and then
out.
send me back out. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agreed. It's crazy. So, you're dealing with all these people, and is there, America, especially, we have obesity, we have,
Hmm.
sedentary lifestyle and all the problems caused with that. We have processed food and all the problems caused by it. We have a difficulty even getting, good quality food. It's an effort and it's
Hmm.
expensive. I'm assuming, diet, based on you've got a book about it, is a big part of your biohacking.
Yeah.
What's your pillars of that?
It's pretty simple. Just eat real food.
Hmm.
And then the kind of food is different between people. And,
Sure.
there's hundreds of different preferences of different people.
Right.
And I tell people just don't go too extreme.
Yeah.
And if you do want to go extreme, then you need to do more research. So
Yeah.
what I consider extreme, because we talked earlier about the two edges of it.
All right.
So there's the militant vegans over here, and then there's the
Right.
militant carnivores over here.
Right. And I know
Eh,
both.
yeah, so do I. And neither is going to be a healthy lifestyle.
For very
You
long.
can you can make it healthy-ish if you
Right.
do a ton of work and research,
Right.
or you can just be not so extreme.
Right. Agreed.
But the bottom line is whole foods and avoid processed foods as much as possible. And that would include, most vegetable oils because, they're extruded and manufactured and all that
Sure.
kind of stuff. And they don't come off a plant or an animal. And so, just don't eat it. And then
Right.
even with animals, it's different because if people do eat meat, then it's even more important for that to be very clean, wild, free range,
Good. Yeah.
grass
Right.
fed, all those things. Because the difference between a grass fed cow, a grass fed organic cow that's roaming around like he did since time began,
Yeah.
and a feedlot
Oh,
cow
it's not even
is completely different animal. The
exactly.
feedlot cows are literally poison,
Yeah.
and the grass fed cows are amazing. It's a
Yeah.
real food.
One of the sayings that I've taken into my life is you are what you eat eats. And
Yeah.
it's important to consider that, if you're eating
Totally.
a commercially farmed anything, go and look at what they eat
Oh,
and what they're injected with and realize that that's what you're eating.
yeah.
You think again.
Even fish farms. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
fish farms are like eating a bag of
horrible.
chips.
Yes,
There's a
horrible.
bag of chips with fortified with fake protein. I mean,
Agreed.
it's people don't realize this, but they've
Yeah.
got to get back to our country is probably the most developed, yet we have the worst food.
Yes.
So explain that. It's so sad. And stuff that we're doing with our food supply are illegal in most other parts of the world.
Great. It's cheap, easy, and we're lazy. That's really
Yeah.
comes down
Yeah.
to it. It's work. I grow a lot of my food now, and with
Hmm.
my current situation, I have to live a vegan diet because of what I'm dealing with, but
Yep.
not by choice. And when I am cancer free, I'll go back to eating some meat. And the thing
Yep.
is we do things in extremes, and
Yeah.
we always do too much of a thing, like you
Yeah.
said. And most people eat way too much meat. Not that you can't eat some meat and be fine, but that we
Yeah.
generally just do too much, and then you get
Right.
more harm than good.
Right. Yeah. And because you're a biohacker and because you like to research and learn new things, you're able to do vegan in a healthy way.
Absolutely.
And that's great. And for this time in your life, it's perfect for you. And
It's
you should
done what
be.
it needs to do. It's working the way
Yeah,
it needs to. And I
right.
think a big part of it too is having goals and monitoring yourself. When I began this journey, I was 80 pounds heavier than I am, and
Wow.
lost 50 pounds over the course of about a year and maintained it for 7 years. And then when I got cancer, I've had to go to this vegan route and this really extreme diet, and I've lost another
Hmm.
30. And now I'm
Wow.
building back up. And I
Hmm.
went below what I wanted to be, but it's what it took to beat this thing. And
Hmm.
so now I'm in the process of rebuilding, and it's a difficult path with this vegan diet, but we're doing it. And
Yeah,
you discipline yourself and you do the things you don't necessarily want to, and you do it.
right. And I'm sure you'll agree that cancer is there because we gave it a certain soil to grow in.
Exactly.
When you change that soil, it can't grow anymore. And
Exactly.
there's lots of ways to do it. There's not
Yes.
one right way to do that. There's
At
lots of
all.
ways. But every single right way, and there's lots of them,
Mhm.
is real food
Always.
and staying away from all that processed stuff.
Always.
And just going back, basically going back 200 years, going back in time, 200 years,
Yeah,
when that stuff didn't exist, and just
exactly.
eat like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like ingredients are food, and that's it. It
Hmm.
don't it is if you got to put a dish together, it needs to be made of food. And the
Yeah.
second you start putting things that aren't food into your food, then you're no longer eating. I know we're getting a little light on time. What are your thoughts on fasting? I know that that's in a lot of people's world, that's a pillar.
Yes. And that would be an experiment someone would need to do
Hmm.
because I think it's appropriate for most people,
Hmm.
but it isn't for some.
Agreed.
Now, it's also something to phase into
Right.
because if somebody is eating processed food and they're overweight and they're out of shape and they immediately start fasting, they're going to feel awful.
Oh
And
yeah.
they're going to
Gonna
immediately
be horrible.
assume,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty horrible anyways, even when you're good at it. But coming right off of a fast food diet, man, it's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. And so it kind of depends on the person. Personally, I do intermittent fasting.
Uh-huh.
So I'm doing the 8-16,
Okay.
and so I'll eat for 8 hours in the day. And that's what's worked great for me.
Hmm.
Now, it's easier for me because I'm largely some people say I'm keto. I would say more like I'm low carb. And the reason I differentiate is because I eat more protein than your classic keto person,
Hmm.
but I'm about that low on carbs. And so it's easy for me to do intermittent fasting because I just don't get hungry. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Protein
yeah,
makes you stay full for a while.
right. Yeah. And so, and I don't have the sugar highs and lows. And so
Right.
I don't get that kind of hunger either. So it's easy for me to do that. And other people do it different. They'll pick a
Sure.
day and they just won't eat the whole day, or
Yeah.
they'll do once a month. It'll be, 3 days off and do
Yeah.
that. But I do think fasting is a good idea,
Mhm.
but you have to work into it. And then there
Absolutely.
are some cases with some women with some conditions and other examples, but that's just
Yeah.
one that I
There's
throw out
reasons why
there.
some people can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrible idea. So
Yeah.
you gotta work with your hopefully a good functional medicine doctor, a holistic doctor, that can guide you through this and help you decide if it's right for you. But yeah, it's not for everybody, but it is for me, and I found a way to do mine because of my specific experimentation. And what
Agreed.
I'm doing isn't right for everybody. And in fact, I don't recommend a low carb diet to most people
Agreed.
because it's too hard to do. I tell
Not
people do the
sustainable for most
Mediterranean.
people. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I start people on the Mediterranean all the time because that's
Yeah.
the easiest one and it's really healthy
And it's good
because it's
for
a
you.
whole food diet. Yeah, right. And then over time, I help people find their perfect diet based on what works for them
Yes.
because everyone's different.
I couldn't agree more. Well, listen, we are just about out of time. As I suspected, this conversation was going to be easy, and we've
Yeah.
probably got a lot more to talk about. So I'm hoping that we can
Hmm.
get you back on.
Right on.
But I always like to give a guest your elevator pitch and a chance to let everybody know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, everything's on xgym.com, all the social links and everything there, xgym.com. And that's how to get a hold of me and see all the stuff and get in touch if you want or get more information on different things, like the book and the brain type test and the app and online training and live training at our Kirkland Club and all that kind of stuff.
Fantastic. Well, PJ, it's
Hmm.
been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to a further conversation. And to all the listeners, I thank you for your support. And this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast.
Right on. Thanks.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.